All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Iliff School of Theology's Time to Apply application webinar virtual session. We are delighted that all of you are here with us today. And we thought we'd begin with a quick round of introductions, and we'll start with the Iliff team that's here today and taking part in this. I will start, I guess. So I'm Brother Daniel, and I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Iliff School of Theology. And I'm also an alum of the school. I graduated in 2002 with my MDiv, Master of Divinity degree with a Justice and Peace Studies concentration. And I'm responsible for the MDiv and Doctor of Ministry inquiries. Been at Iliff going on to my 7th year. And before that, spent about 12 years after graduating Iliff as a labor union and faith-based community organizer before coming back to the school. And so I'm also a 20-year professed brother in the ecumenical religious community called the Order of St. Luke, which is the reason for the BR dot in front of my name. And I will pass it over to my colleague, Alexandra, to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Alexander Ravenscroft. I have a Master's of Divinity degree, which I got from Naropa University. My role here is if you are looking to apply for the Masters of Pastoral and Spiritual Care program, the Masters of Theological Studies program, or the MASJE Masters of Social Justice and Ethics program, I am your admissions rep. I'm on the other side of that email, wanting so desperately to connect with you. I also have done activist work in the LGBT community, and I'm an ordained clergy in an inclusive heathen organization called Foreign Cedar of America.
Cool. Thank you, Alexandra. Dr. Jeremy Garber, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Jeremy. I came to Iliff to enroll in our joint PhD program in 2006 and helped found the Academic Advising Center in 2010. So right now my role is the coordinator of the Academic Advising Center and also the Writing Center. So it's in that latter capacity that I'll talk with you folks later about how to relieve your anxiety about the admissions essay. That's the plan. And I also teach theology and popular culture here, which was my excuse to watch movies and read comic books and get a PhD.
There you go. A lucrative field indeed, my friends. That's why you're all here, right? Because there's big money in ministry. Okay, Dennis, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Dennis Vedrakatakin Hamichan. I am a student ambassador with the Office of Admissions. I have been one of the student ambassadors who've been calling you to remind you to apply and just to get your application going and, you know, share from a student's perspective a little bit about Iliff that, you know, we thought you might find helpful in this process of as you decide to apply. I'm also a third-year student in the MDiv program. So we're coming down to the end of the quarter right now. So it's been a busy time. So it's good to be here with y'all.
Thank you, Dennis. And now, of course, we'd love to hear a word of introduction from all of our prospective student applicants that are here today as well. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing just 3 things with us so we can kind of learn a little bit more about you. Tell us your name and any preferred pronouns if you like, where you're zooming in from geographically, and then last but certainly not least, your degree program of interest, if you know that already. And if folks, if you just want to raise your hand and unmute yourself to go, that's fine. Or I can start calling on people. It's up to you. Hilda.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hilda. I am a graduate of Iliff from 1990. I'm calling in from Boulder, but I live at least half of the year in Norway, in Europe. And I'm doing LGBT ministry activism work, and I'm probably going to apply for the doctoral ministry program.
Great, thank you, Hilda. And you and I are connecting next week, I think, correct? Perfecto, great. Not in Norway though, unfortunately. I'd love to come and meet you there. Who's next? Who'd like to go next?
I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Sierra, and I am zooming in from Denver. I'm here in Colorado, and I'm interested in the social justice and ethics.
Fantastic. Thank you, Maria.
I'm Mariah. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm zooming in from Lakewood, Colorado, so not too far from Iliff, and I will be applying for the MTS.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mariah. It's good to see you. Katie.
Hi, I'm calling in from my office at St. Anthony's Hospital in Lakewood, and my name is Katie, and I will be applying for the doctorate of ministry. And good to see you in person, Daniel.
Absolutely. Likewise. Yay. It's 2D men. Dale.
Hi, my name is Dale Williams. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am calling from my office at a homeless shelter in Lansing, Michigan, so a bit further than some of the other people, and I am looking to apply for the MDiv program.
Good morning, all. My name is Brianna Brannon. I'm also calling in from a different time zone in Tacoma, Washington, pronouns they, them, and interested in the MDiv program.
Fantastic. Christy.
Hi, my name is Christy Chady. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm zooming in from Thornton, Colorado, and I'm looking to apply for the MDiv program.
Lovely. Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm zooming in from Loveland, Colorado, and I am interested in the MTS program.
Right on. Let's see, that leaves, I think, Julie. Emily, go ahead, Emily. I saw your hand.
Thank you for letting me jump in. I lost the Zoom info, so I really appreciate that. My name is Emily Autry. I go by she, her pronouns. I am calling in from Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I'm actually looking at doing the dual degree with the master's in divinity and then master's in social work.
Great. Excuse me. Thank you. And I think, let's see, Julie and John, maybe the last two.
Hi, I'm Julie. I am zooming in from down the street and just pretty much a mile away. I am she, her, and looking at the master's in spiritual and pastoral care.
Fantastic. And then John, I know, said he might have to be in and out and might have to drop off early, driving a bus later, right? It's good to see you. I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself, John, and just share your name, kind of where you're zooming in from and your degree program you're interested in.
My name's John Powers. I'm in Miami, Arizona right now, but my wife and I have a house in Safford, and we just moved earlier this year from Las Cruces, New Mexico. I'm originally from Virginia. Shout out to Fort Smith because my parents went to high school in Fort Smith, Arkansas. So I'm in the bus barn where they work on school buses and do repairs of vehicles. And I have a bus outside that I have to go pick up some kids from a special Friday event in just a little bit. I have a master's in library science. Now I'm as a librarian right now. I'm trying to get into Master Divinity program, and I've got part of my everything submitted, but not the last bit. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, no worries.
I don't remember everything you asked.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that's great. Glad you're able to join us. It looks like I just admitted Peter as well. Not sure if you can hear yet or you're connected to audio, Peter. We were just doing a quick round of introductions. So if you're able to unmute yourself, you can share your name geographically, where you're zooming in from, and your degree program of interest. Okay, maybe still connecting here. Okay. Oh, hi, Peter. Good to see you. Glad you're able to join us. A little bit of a Zoom lag here, perhaps. Okay, we'll go ahead and start then. I'm going to go ahead and begin and share my screen. Basically, what we're going to do for the rest of this time, we're just going to provide sort of a step-by-step walkthrough of the admissions application process at Iliff. So it sounds like some of you have started an application, some of you have already submitted, but are still working on some pieces. Some of you may not have started it at all. So we're going to kind of do a bird's eye view for you, which hopefully will be helpful. And then Dr. Jeremy Garber will talk about the essay in particular, for all of you that, like he said, have anxieties about that. And then Dennis will be going over the resume piece and like why we're asking for that and what that looks like, since he has expertise in that area as well. Let's see. Okay. Oh, we got somebody else joining us too. All right. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Everybody see the Iliff home landing page? Fantastic. So all of the application requirements are on the website here on this tab. So if you hover over admissions and then just left click apply requirements, it will take you to the page that really lists everything that you need to know. For international students, this is sort of a separate tab because, as you might imagine, there are some additional requirements, right, for our international applicants. Alexandra will talk a little bit maybe about some of that later. But we'll start with the main page here. And so if you just scroll down, here's what we're doing today. You're all involved in this. That's pretty cool. So scroll down a little bit here and you will see all of our application deadlines, right? For each and all of the programs, what the learning options are and the times, right, to apply. So for all of our master's programs have the exact same priority application deadlines and regular deadlines. For the master's programs, you can only start a new master's program in 2 terms of the academic quarter, either the fall or winter quarter. So if you didn't know this yet, we are not on the semester system at Iliff. We are on the quarter system, just like our friends at the University of Denver that we run some joint cooperative programs with. And so basically we have a fall priority deadline of January 31st each year, with a final fall deadline of August 15th. And then the winter deadline is December 1st. So those are the main 3 dates to keep in mind. In terms of the fall, what a priority deadline does for you for January 31st is it puts you at the top of the queue in terms of scholarship consideration, right? So first come, first serve. So if you're able to get in your application to start in, let's say, the fall of 2022, you would want to try to hit that January 31st deadline if you can. But if not, don't worry, you have till August 15th. People that apply at midnight at August 15th and are accepted have often still gotten scholarship money. You never know. So a little bit of a balance there between wanting to put yourself in the best position by submitting early, but you also want to submit the best application you can, right? So, and then just one application deadline for master's programs for winter, which is December 1st. For our D-Min folks, there is a winter only admission period. And so your priority deadline is August 31st with a final deadline of December 1st, with classes starting in early January of 2022. The joint PhD program is one that we run with the University of Denver, but that's a separate process. It's at a different admissions department runs that, and it's a separate website as well. And I don't think we have anybody on interested in that. So I believe that covers the master's programs and the D-Min. Scrolling down, you will see our application checklist talking about our prerequisites. So I will go through some of these. Sorry, I'm moving my own little screen around here. Okay. So we're looking for, for both non-degree and degree students, we're looking for a minimum. If you're a D-Min, obviously you already have to have a Master's of Divinity from an accredited institution acceptable to Iliff, and have spent 3 years in ministry, active ministry after receiving that MDiv. But for everybody else in the master's programs, we at least need a completed bachelor's degree. It can be in any subject. People ask that, does it have to be like liberal arts, religion, philosophy? No. We get folks who are biochem majors, right? So bachelor's of science degrees. So it doesn't really matter what your bachelor's degree is, but it does have to be from a college or university that's accredited. With a cumulative GPA, we say this is our minimum, right? GPA 2.75 on a 4.0 scale. However, hear me, we absolutely admit students that actually have a lower minimum GPA than that. There are tons of really good reasons why somebody might have a GPA lower than 2.75. And our admissions committee that reviews the applications, or we look at the whole application holistically, right? So weakness in one area won't necessarily count you out of consideration. Some students do start out as like science majors, you can tell, right, in their applications as a BA. And then you can tell they've struggled academically, but then like from the junior year on, when they switch to whatever theater, religion studies, all of a sudden they're making like straight A's and some B's. So like, and there can be other reasons too, right? Folks have family issues, diagnosis of different medical conditions. Like there's all kinds of reasons you may have struggled in undergrad. So don't let that stop you from applying if that's you. What I usually tell folks is you can just address that though in your essay. And that's what I would encourage, is just be transparent. If you're feeling like your GPA is low and you are comfortable letting the admissions committee know why, that can go a long way for sure. So there are other more important things than the cumulative GPA, like you're fit for Iliff in your essay. Okie dokie. Scrolling back down here a little bit more. So there are a lot of ways to get to the actual online application, right? It's really hard not to get to it. So it's a hyperlink here. Right here at the top of the page, you just click apply. It's hard to miss it. And it will take you to a whole separate page here, right? Where you can start your application. And it's not timed or anything. So you can work on it at your own pace. You can start it, stop it, do all that stuff and go in and work on it at your own pace. Jeremy's going to talk about the essay later. Here's some like general rules here about length for it. But here's something that isn't totally intuitive that you wouldn't know that sometimes people do ask. So when you start an application for us and you pick which degree program you're interested in, there are a set of it's usually 3 essay questions, right? Some of them are the same, but some of them are specific depending on the degree program you're interested in. But you can look at those ahead of time before you even start your application by left clicking on the programs here. So Master of Divinity, for example, boom, there you go. There's the 3 questions. So you can start working on the essay before you even start the application, if you like. Doctor of Ministry, same thing. MTS, same thing too. And so usually it's the second question that's a little bit different depending on your degree program. So I heard somebody say they're interested in MTS. So for this example, you'd be reflecting on a theological book or scholarly article that's interested you, and then sort of tying that into your wanting to study at Iliff. And then the other questions are pretty the same. These are really about fit, right, with our core values. And then us also wanting to know your academic, professional, personal reasons for wanting to study at a school such as Iliff, right? Graduate schools of theology, a lot of us do many things the same, but also some things different too. So this is your chance to let us know that you understand us, and here's why you think that, we can all make lovely music together. Okay. In terms of the online application too, like we do have an application submission fee like everybody else does. If that's a financial hardship for you, reach out to me or Alexandra and we can offer you a fee waiver code if you need that, so you can bypass that fee. And with that, I'm going to keep sharing, but I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Alexandra, now to take us through the rest of this page.
So next we're going to talk about transcripts. So here we go. Please request official transcripts from every college or university from which you have attended. So that's any associates, any bachelors, any postgraduate work, any and all, send them to us. We prefer electronic if possible because it will speed up your admissions process exponentially. Digital transcripts should be sent directly from the college or university to our admissions office. From the institution through the National Student Clearinghouse or Parchment, those links are on the website, or just directly to us in admissions@iliff.edu. Only transcripts sent directly from your school to Iliff are going to be considered official. We will, however, accept unofficial transcripts as well. Unofficial transcripts may be uploaded to the online application to expedite the review of your application. If you only have unofficial transcripts, they will hold your place until we receive your official transcripts, and we will move you through to consideration with only unofficial. If you are accepted at Iliff, we require you to have your official transcripts as soon as possible for your student records. If you're feeling snail mail, you may also provide paper-based transcripts, but this will delay the ability to review your application for admission in a timely manner. Our address is Iliff, School of Theology, Office of Admissions, 2323 East Iliff Avenue, Denver, Colorado, 80210. And I will put that address in the chat if anyone is interested. Now for our international students, there's an extra requirement. International students, we cannot process your application without an international evaluation of your transcript. This has an additional cost of $300 associated with it. We cannot waive this or move your application to consider it without it. All right, moving on to resumes. Your resume or CV will be uploaded electronically through the online application system. Your resume is a snapshot of who you authentically are. The admissions committee is interested in applicants' professional experience, which may include any volunteer experience you have, community service, paid work experience, or life experience like travel, etc. In addition to your professional experience, we encourage you to include any academic awards, fellowships, or scholarships, publications, authored or co-authored, research, and any other pertinent experience. Later, Dennis will go over how to write this resume in amazing detail. Lastly, we have the LORs, or letters of recommendation. We need a minimum of 2. We are able to move your application with 2, a maximum of 4. They should be people you know well and can write at some length about your ability to succeed in a graduate learning environment. This could ideally be a religious leader, academic, or professional reference. We will also accept either a field of interest reference or a personal character reference, as long as they are not your family or a member of your family. Applicants can resend LOR requests in their Element app if they need be. The applicant enters recommenders into the online app. Recommenders get an automatically generated email from the system with directions to upload the PDF recommendation letter for you. Tell your recommenders to please check their spam to make sure they didn't miss this email link. The letters of recommendation are requested by the applicant and submitted by the recommender provided the online application system. Applicants may submit an optional 4th reference. The letter should address specifically your abilities for graduate study in religion, theology, or ministry. Letters should be solicited from a college or university professor who have taught you and are well acquainted with your academic qualifications. If an applicant has been out of college for 5 years, say, and is unable to secure an academic reference or any other professional reference, may be substituted for an academic reference. Applicants to the MDiv specifically should include a letter that speaks to your ministerial abilities. All right. Last thing I have is admissions decisions. Usually with the electronic system, we can get to you in 10 days or less. It's pretty lightning fast these days. Also note that there is no separate scholarship application to fill out. Everyone who submits an application to a degree program is considered for internal Iliff monies. We might have, and they might qualify for. However, you should still fill out your FAFSA and to determine your eligibility for federal graduate loans. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Dr. Jeremy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, before we do that, just pause real quick because we went through that pretty quickly. And like I say, some folks have seen that and some haven't. Are there any questions right now about what we just went over in terms of the application pieces or deadlines? Okay, go ahead.
Is there any way to verify whether or not one of your references actually sent something to your organization and whether or not it was received totally? We all know how cyberspace sometimes drops the ball or something like that, and it
that's a great question, John. Yeah, so the system does, you should be informed, right? So if one of those folks uploads their LOR for you through the Element online application, you will be able to see that. It'll basically be checked off as completed. So you can always go back into your application after you've submitted to see the progress, right? So you will see under the letters of reference section whether it's been submitted or is still pending or not. And in fact, you can resend the LOR request too in your application. So like if you've got, let's say you're just trying to get the minimum of 2 because the December 1st deadline is rapidly approaching, and you can see when you go in your app that one has been submitted, one hasn't, you can resend that request to them. Sometimes people, depending on what they have available to them technologically, right, like on their own computer or whatever, they have trouble uploading their letters for you. If that is the case, let us know in admissions. Folks can also send their letters directly to us at admissions@iliff.edu, and we can manually upload those letters into your application for you, if need be. So I really appreciate that question, John. It's a good one. Any others before we toss it over to Jeremy to talk about the all-important essay? All right, we'll have more time for questions later at the end too, so don't worry. Dr. Garber, take it away, sir.
Great. So like I said earlier, I just want to give you folks a little idea about what we're looking for in the admissions essay. And as the leader of the advising center and the writing center both, I always say about half my job is relieving students' anxiety. So that is also the role I am here in today. So let me share my screen because I know we've got visual learners out there as well. We have the lovely pencil here. Ignore the numbers. There's very little math required. All right, so first let's talk about what we're looking for in an essay. Really, in a nutshell, what we want from the essay is not necessarily to show off your proficiency in writing or your ability to reason, although that's part of it. The main thing that we're looking for in the essay is for you to tell your story and for us to see if your story fits the Iliff story, right? So half of that is the Iliff story. Show us that you know why you're applying to Iliff in particular, right? Not just graduate school together in general, not just theological education in general, but why Iliff instead of another school. Browse through the website, look at the different degree programs, look at the course offerings that we've got there, look at faculty that might be exciting to you, teaching in an area or subjects that you're excited about. So that's the Iliff story part of it, right? And then the other half is your story. Tell us why, having seen Iliff, the particular way that we do theological education, the particular focus we have, why your story goes with our story. Another part of that is showing us that we can help you be successful. We want you to get your degree with a minimum of cost, right? We all know the price of graduate school. And I know one of our pastoral care professors lies awake at night worrying about student tuition, right? So help us know that you know about that. You've got some avenues to think about it, some financial literacy in your background, right? We have lovely scholarship programs, but we're a small school. We don't have Duke University's billion-dollar endowment. So we're as generous as we can be, but the more help you can get from folks that you know are official scholarship programs, and then demonstrate that to us during your admissions process. And the other part of that is not only financial management, but time management. Graduate school is hard, right? It's designed to be hard. And theological education in particular is a lot of reading of complicated subjects, but it's also about you, right? Who are you? How do you want to change the world? How do you want to make the world a better place? And that takes time and energy. For an example, our expectation is that for every credit hour you take at Iliff, you're going to spend 2 to 3 hours outside that meeting time doing homework and research. So if you're taking the absolute maximum number of credits you can take, which is 14 credits per quarter, if you do the math there, that's 56 hours of work a week that you're doing, right? That's a full-time job and the part-time job. So tell us about your life situation. Tell us how that fits into the rest of your family responsibilities, work, if you're doing ministry, that kind of stuff. And that's something that myself and Dr. Ju, who's the other academic advisor, will work with you if you're admitted to the program. But show us you've taken that into consideration. One of the things I often do with my students is actually have them make a little table, worksheet that shows, all right, I work for 8 hours a day. I have to go pick the kids up from school. I have to prepare my sermon on Monday. This is how I'm going to fit that 40 hours of work I'm expected to a week into my schedule. So show us your homework, both about your financial management and your time management. Here's a delicate balance, but I'm saying this from what I've seen of admissions essays. As I was saying before, really the point of the essay is to demonstrate your story, your passion for graduate theological education, and why Iliff is the place to do that. It's not to show how smart you are. It's not to use a bunch of footnotes. right? We do want to see that you have a kind of minimum acceptability to do graduate school work, but don't impress us with how clever you are. Your transcripts will do that for you, right? Rather focus on what Iliff is, who you are, and how those two pieces go together. A couple tips on writing well, and I know this goes with some of the stuff Dennis is going to share with us too, but it doesn't hurt to hear it as many times as possible, says the director of the Writing Center. Number one, proofread. There is no easier way to tank your essay than to have it full of spelling errors and grammatical mistakes, right? That's the minimum that we're looking for. And it's easy, especially you've been working on this essay a lot, to not see that stuff, right? A second pair of eyes is a beautiful thing to have. We'll talk about some other tips there, but at the very least, pass your eyes over it, have Microsoft Word check it. Grammarly is not a bad application that some folks use. GR, here, I'll put it in the chat when we're done, is an app that you can use that checks your spelling and grammar and is actually usually quite reasonable. Another good pro tip is read it out loud. This is something that doesn't occur to many folks, but I even do this with PhD students, right? If you read it out loud, you can hear where the blips are. The way I discovered this, actually, I was working with a doctoral student and there was this sentence they wrote that I just didn't understand. So they started reading it and halfway through, they actually had to pause for breath because it was that long. And we both started laughing, right? Like, that's where the period needs to go because we're all tired of reading the sentence already. So reading it out loud will let you know about those long sentences, funny sentences, things that don't sound right to your ear. That will also look odd on paper. And here again, right, have somebody else read it for you. Or you can read it out loud to them. They'll catch some, but have another pair of eyes look over that paper for mistakes, grammar, odd usage, that kind of stuff. Because there are things that you will not be able to see just because you're looking at it so many times. That's all I've got. Questions generally about the application essay and how that works? Go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask.
I'm going to go ahead and ask a question.
Good.
With regard to your resume, I realized in that process, well, I didn't realize this part, but I realized I haven't done one in so long. So I have been at my employer for 18 years. And so I'm like, wow, I haven't done a resume in a really long time. So, does it need to lean more towards a CV or a resume? Like, I know they're a little different.
Yeah, Dennis is totally going to address that all coming up.
Great, thank you.
He's an expert. After I watched him the first time, I went and revamped mine. Any other questions about the essay? Great. I will hand it over to Dennis to do his magic.
All righty. So I'll share my screen as well. Here. Alrighty. All right. All right. So you all could see this screen right now. Okay, good. All right. So part of the application process is that we're not just focused on your academics. We want to get a sense of who you are as a whole, and part of that is showing us your professional identity, or the activities you've been a part of. And a resume is a good place to have that information available. And I have here, it's a snapshot of who you are, your professional and extracurricular identity. In the resume, as Alexandra mentioned before, we look for volunteer activities, travel experience, internship, service on boards of nonprofits or faith communities. and academic or professional awards and publications. So these are things you might not mention in your essay or anywhere else in the application process. Putting it on your resume is a good place to just keep that there. And your resume gives a concise overview of who you are and what you've done in the past professionally. So 2 types of resume that are most common, and I think Maria asked a question that she's been working 18 years at a specific place, and I think that's why these 2 are most common, and I'll get into that. So for the chronological format, this is where you list your activities or your work experience in a reverse chronological order. And that means that you're starting from the most recent going backwards to what you have done in the past. And this one is the most traditionally used one, because most times when people are updating their resumes, they use things that are current, and if you haven't worked extensively in the field, this is the one you would want to highlight the different roles that you've had. Functional. So this one I think will apply to Maria. So this one lists your experiences in a topical categories according to your skills. So you don't have to list this one in a specific order of like, I've been at this location for 10 years and then I moved to a new location or a new role in employment. So you'd want to list the skills you have, and if you're curating your resume for Iliff, you might want to say have some leadership roles or managerial skills and things like that. You want to list them in order and just talk about them in short sentences, just to give us a sense of what you've done in those roles and how you've gained those experiences. Another reason why you'd use a functional resume is when you have so you might have been working for a while, but then you got out of the workforce and you've been doing something else. So you'd want to use this so you don't highlight those gaps, because sometimes as you're reading a resume, you might see something in 2020 and then the next experience that's available is 2010. You don't want to, that might have too many questions raised. So you'd want to just list them in this topical way where you just talk about your skills, your leadership experience. And that's why we're open to, if you don't have professional experience, list activities, travels, everything that you've done, your publications, just list them on your resume.
Hey, Dennis?
Yes.
Can I pause 1 second? I just saw Brianna, I believe, has her virtual hand raised.
Okay.
She has a question real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis, is it okay to ask a question right now, or do you want to wait to the end?
I can take a question now, yeah.
I'm curious with functional resumes, if they could also be used effectively, like if I've done a lot of different things, and so sometimes trying to figure out how I find the narrative thread through the different things. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. I don't have gaps, but I've done a lot in different fields.
Yeah, I think I think you can use a functional in this way, but I think what you would want to be, I guess when you're applying to theological education, I think if you have done many things, you don't have to list everything you've done. You'd want to select the ones that are relevant to what you're going to apply towards. So you want to, for us, this is just a snapshot of who you are. You might have done, work in your community. You would want to highlight that. You might have volunteered somewhere else. Different things that you think will benefit you in this application process are the things you want to highlight, because you don't need to include everything on your resume. That's why it's always, when you're applying for a job, you never want to just have one resume where you're sending to every job. You want to curate each resume for that position that you're applying to. And it's the same thing applies here. You want to make it relevant. So when the application, the admission team are looking at your application, you're just highlighting things that will get their attention right away.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's always the dilemma.
Yeah, okay, all righty. Any other questions before about chronological or functional or anything? I'll get into more details on how to design a resume before we jump into that. Any questions? And thanks for your question, Brianna.
All right, I had a quick question.
Yes.
Are you going to, is there a template or a format or a sample of these that we might see? Is that?
So I'll go, I don't have a specific template, but I have highlighted the parts that are very important in the resume. So, and I'll talk about them. So I think that can be helpful as you are planning to write your resume. And I can also share this PowerPoint with you if I can send it to Brother Daniel and he can send it to everyone.
Wonderful.
Yeah, okay. All righty. All right. So there are 4 main components of a resume, and this is, I think, standard. We require, show some volunteer publications. So these are additional sections that you can add. But traditionally, these are the 4 main components. You have the heading, there was the outdated, some people use objective section. That is no longer relevant, especially as you're applying for a graduate program. You're sending an essay about who you are. So we don't need an objective to get a sense of that. So you want to summarize your qualifications. And this is a good place, again, to highlight very important and relevant qualifications in this application process. And then you list your work history or professional experience, and then education. And education comes at the bottom. This is because most people have been working. If you've been working for a while, your education doesn't need to be at the top. But if you just graduated from an undergraduate program, we would recommend then switching it after summary of qualification and add your education, or even before summary of qualification if you don't have too many qualifications to create the summary of qualifications section. All righty. So heading. So these are the 4 items that you'd want to have listed on your in your heading section. Your name and address. One thing, because you're already applying and submitting your app information to Iliff, you don't need to put your full address there. I think city, state, and zip code is sufficient for this. And you want to list a telephone number, but you also, I think I've done career advising, and I think one thing we always remind people to do is have a professional email, one with your name in it, because sometimes we might want to look you up. You might have sent an email to us, and if it's sweet Jesus at Gmail, we can't find Joe Smith from that, so always have an email, with your name somehow in there. If it's, first initial, last name, something that we can easily find when we're looking for you as part of, we have this CRM that puts everything together. So that might not be an issue for us, but in case you're late and you just want to send an email to Brother Daniel or to Alexandra and say, hey, I don't have time to upload it. Here's my resume. This is a good way for them to keep track and to know who you are. And So city, state, and zip code. I think this is important. I lived in New York, so one of the things employers tend to do, they want to know where people are located, because sometimes they try to map how long it'll take them to get to the work site or location, and sometimes that's how they base their hiring decisions. So, but that's not for us. You know, we're not too worried about how far you are, because you know we have many online programs. So, but this is standard, just city, state, and zip code there. And for your name, I'm working backward here. For your name, you don't want it to be too bold on the resume. Standard size is between 16 to 18 point font, and bold. You don't want it to be like right across the top of the page. It's unnecessary and it's very distracting when we're reading a resume. So you just want to keep it bold so we know who you are, but very clean and precise. Okay, so here we go. Summary of qualifications. I mentioned that this replaces the outdated objective section. And this is where you want to highlight important skills or qualifications, usually 3 to 5 concise statements. And you can list them in sentence or bullet points. And this is where you want to add the qualifications that might be relevant to applying to Iliff. You know, because you might show your work experience, but this is where you want to highlight the different qualifications and possibly certifications you may have. And I'll have an example here. So if you are applying to Iliff and you're looking to get into the MDiv program, I think something like this, listing some of the things you've done. If you're a local licensed pastor, if you've done community organizing, you want to list some of the skills you have that can be helpful. You know, language skills are also very important to highlight, because, you know, sometimes scholarships might be based on language proficiency for certain scholarships. So you might want to highlight those. Any questions so far about heading and summary of qualifications before I go into the professional experience? Alrighty. So as I mentioned earlier, you want to list your professional experience in a reverse chronological order. And this is if you're doing a chronological resume. So these are some of the things you want to highlight when you're putting that information on your resume. And one of the things that's very important in a resume is you don't have to explain every detail. So this is where being concise is very important, being clear in just giving a brief description of your responsibilities. And you want to do it in a way that gets the attention of the person reading your resume, because people usually don't spend too much time reading a resume. So you in the professional world, they said it's 37 seconds they spend on average on reading a resume. So, and I don't know if that's the same standard here at Iliff, but you know, I don't think we're going to spend too long reading your resume because we have so many other things to read as part of your application. And this is how I would do it. I highlight the role, and I think I'll highlight this because sometimes in the past people highlight where they work, and I think that's not the important aspect of what you've done. You know, highlighting what you've done within an organization is much more important. And then I think most times when someone see that you've done community organizing or you're a community organizer, then they'll want to know where you did that. So they go back and but if you highlight where you work, sometimes they miss what you did at that or in that role. So you just want to make sure to pay emphasis on what you did instead of where you work. And if you are currently employed at a location, you want to keep everything in the present tense. The initial action word that you start off with, which is always recommended, starting off with an action word. And then if as you go down to the past, you want to switch everything to past tense. And education. So this is where you're going to do the same thing. Follow it in the reverse chronological order, listing the most recent degree that you acquired. And this is a sample of how you can do that. So if you have a master's degree, that one as the most recent one, you'd want to list that, and then you list your bachelor's. At a graduate level, there's no need to list high school on a resume. It's understood or implied that you have high school diploma. So you just list your undergraduate or graduate degrees that you've received. And some tips and things to remember. Resumes are a snapshot of who you are professionally. The clearer you present your information, the easier it is for the reviewer to read. And as I mentioned here, a resume for a job is looked at for 7 seconds and an additional 30 seconds if the reviewer finds it appealing or relevant to the position. As Dr. Garber mentioned, in writing your essay, spelling and grammar and bad formatting are off-putting. So that is something you want someone to, as you complete your resume, sometimes you might not see things that are on there that might be a mistake or spelling, or you want to, it's recommended having someone else look at your resume before submitting it. Have a peer, friend, family member, someone you think can give you some insights into ensuring that you don't have spelling and grammar, because this is for us it's graduate level, so you want to show that you have a high level of paying attention to details, because I think those things really matter in this process. And always highlight your transferable skills. You might not have all the skills required for a Master of Divinity or an MTS or even the DMin, but highlight the skills that you have and show how they're relevant to this degree program that you're applying to. So those are some things I want you to remember, and as you're going to put your resume together in this application process. And now, if you have any questions, I am open to answering questions. Oh, yes, Brianna.
I had another question, Dennis. I may have missed this at the beginning of the presentation. Did you talk about whether to do a resume or CV? Because I saw on Ileff's website it says resume or CV, and just any thoughts around that distinction?
Yeah, well, I think there are some students that come to Iliff who have PhD degrees and have publications and have done extensive work within a field. So a CV might be much more relevant for them. And if you've done a lot of work, and I think CV is beneficial when I think you have publications and different. I think when you've done like research-based work, a CV would be beneficial to you. But I think if you're just applying with traditional professional skills, a graduate, undergraduate or graduate degree, I think a resume is just enough for us, 1 to 2 pages. But if you have things that can show that, oh, I've done research, I've done than a CV. So you make that assessment on your skills and what you're bringing to Iliff in making that distinction of either a resume or a CV. So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some folks have done sort of basically a traditional kind of resume, right? But then like for folks that maybe have done like a bunch of presentations, but it's employment based, not necessarily research based. So whatever that is, right? So different stuff, maybe like denominational events, right? Or whatever social justice stuff, nonprofit work. They've kind of added that on as sort of a little separate section. And I think usually chronological, maybe it's been, right? Like presented at youth, whatever, fill in the blank. And that's fine too.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah. I guess that'd be like a hybrid version. So
yeah.
Christy.
I think Christy raised her hand.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have a recommendation for how to present, like I've had 3 different positions at one organization. So how to best organize that in the resume or CV?
Oh yeah, so just as you list, let me share my screen again. I think this will make it much easier. I can do maybe a demonstration. Okay, so I think, let's say you're working for this organization here, and you've had 3 different positions. You'd want to just list this one as community organizer, and then you'd go and you'd list the other one here, and you'd put, you don't need to put this, you just put the dates. Like we'll do the formatting later, but you could say, let's say intern, right? So you'd put that there, you'd list what you've done under there, just to show if there's like a progression or promotion within the same organization. So you just want to show that there, and having it in different sections, I guess, in this linear fashion. I think it's very clear and simple. You don't need to list the organization multiple times. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, any other questions before I pass it back over to Brother Daniel? Yes, Emily.
Could you clarify just a little bit about the summary at the top? So in recent, like not recent, but like in college, a class I took about resumes, we listed our skills like underneath. And so I liked how you said to include your skills in that summary. So you don't need to put any, I guess my clarity is to like, at the end, you don't need to put any of your skills listed. Is that correct?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I think this is where it depends. It's for you. I think you want to list skills that you think are going to be beneficial in highlighting. If, like, you don't, like, I'll give you an example. For me, I did architecture, and I did I have skills in like drafting plans for houses. For Iliff, I don't think that's a necessary skill to highlight on my resume. But I think if I want to say I use PowerPoint in presentations, that is a relevant skill, because part of this program is being able to present and use these tools that are available. So you just want to highlight that as part of the process. Yeah.
I got
Dennis,
kicked out. I'm sorry.
This is really helpful. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah. Oh, welcome. Thank you. Did you have another question, Emily?
No, but I missed your answer. I got kicked out.
Okay. Okay, yeah. No, I was saying that you want to put relevant skills that you think are necessary. And I give the example that if you've done like architectural design or something, you don't need to list that you can use AutoCAD or something. That's not a relevant thing to include on your resume for Iliff. But if you're applying for, a job in city planning, that might be a necessary skill to highlight. But for Iliff,
Okay.
maybe use that in a way where you talk about how that's a transferable skills, like you're bringing transferable skills to Iliff, but in the summary of qualifications, I think just the main ones that you think are, someone looking at your resume, they're like, oh, this person's a licensed pastor, they've done community organizing for 10 years. And so Iliff might, what makes you seem as a good fit within the Iliff community. And those are the skills you want to emphasize there. But if you feel it's necessary to list additional skills, you can create a section in the bottom. There's no way, nothing that says you can't do that. If you think, I want to show I have all these skills, you can do that as well. But for the summary, it's just highlighting the ones that are relevant to this program that you're applying to.
So like the qualifications.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The qualifications on top of the resume, right, or CV is really designed, whether it's to get into a grad school or an employer, should be designed is to kind of be little hooks, tailored toward your prospective school or employer. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I heard that. I started, and I will retool my resume at some point in the future based on your expert guidance. I appreciate it. All right. Cool. Thank you both, Dr. Garber and Dennis. Those were helpful for sure. Good stuff. So we've made fantastic time in sticking to our agenda. We're now at sort of the open Q&A session. So this is your chance to ask any questions you want to about the Iliff application process, or about Iliff in general, or the degree programs. So yeah, just feel free to kind of unmute yourself as you are so moved. And I'm sure some
question about transcripts. I do have an associate's degree from a school that closed though years and years ago, and I have a hard copy that I've like held it like sacred. It's a speed up copy,
right?
Because I did so well, and I'm proud of it. And so, is that something I could just make a copy and upload as far as my associates? Because I have associates and a bachelor's.
Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, you can like scan it and then just let when you send it to admissions, let us know what you just said, right? Okay. That the school's closed and they don't. Sometimes when schools close, my undergrad did that too. Like within the last 5 years, they sometimes they will contract with another institution to hold those transcripts, but sometimes they don't, right?
Right.
And sometimes records burn in fires, right, from places. So,
right.
So yeah, that's totally fine. Feel free to do that. I don't know if like on your bachelor's transcript, it might also show that those associate credits transferred in. It may not. So yeah, absolutely. Feel free, because you can't do anything about that, right? No. Not your fault. The community college closed. So yeah, feel free to scan it, send it to us, and just make a note.
All right, great. Thank you.
And then what we do is we factor in that as part of your cumulative GPA, right? Yeah, great question. Yes, Christy.
I have a transcript question also.
Okay.
As part of my bachelor's degree, I had taken classes in high school from 2 different colleges, just 1 class at each. Do I need to get transcripts from those colleges also?
No, not really. I don't think, unless our policies changed. I don't think we need to. Usually, like our registrar has told me that, if it's just like 1 class, right, that's not as important as a substantial amount, right? It would kind of really change the cumulative GPA, and that we're required by federal educational law to have. So I don't think you need to worry about those. Would those have appeared as part of like transfer credit into your another degree for you, maybe?
I think they're listed on my transcript as transfer credit, but I'm not sure if they list what the actual course title was.
Right, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's I don't think you have to worry about tracking this down.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is about like classroom, I guess, like once we get there. I know that Iliff is a lot, like does a lot online. But I'm in like a position where I can and would want to move to Colorado and like do more in-person classes. What, like, I guess my struggle right now is like, I love Iliff and I want to be in Colorado, but will I get as much learning in person? Like, what does that environment look like for it?
Yeah. Yeah, you were breaking up there a little bit, but I heard the question for sure. I mean, I think, our average like kind of student to professor ratio in an in-person class is like 1 to 14 or 1 to 16 is what it's been for a while. It's pretty intimate. Even our online classes though are usually capped at 35 students. So like we do try to really preserve that authentic relationship piece, because like learning from your fellow classmates at a place as diverse as at Iliff is just as important as learning from the faculty, quite honestly, right? Like it's where you're being formed in a lot of interesting ways about like diversity, right? So like, because our students come from 30 different faith traditions, I think close and none. So that's pretty unique really in our quote unquote industry. I mean, I think Iliff does graduate online hybrid education better than really anyone I know, because we've been doing it for a long time, right? So like I guess that's a boast, but it's also just a chronological fact. However, and I'd be interested, I think Dr. Garber could speak to this, and certainly Dennis, who I think has probably experienced both modes. I think maybe one thing that does happen in an in-person class that doesn't happen in a virtual format is those kind of unplanned conversations in the hallway, right? Or at special events and that kind of thing, which is another way of forming community, right? That's just really harder to replicate, I think, in an online environment. I'll pause though and see if Dennis and Dr. Garber would like to comment on that as well.
Yeah, I can share. I'm doing 4 classes and 2 of them are in person, and I've always liked my online classes, but part of me, I also moved to Denver to be closer to Iliff to just do in-person classes. And since I've moved, this is the first quarter since COVID, we're able to meet in person. And for me, I've really enjoyed being in class. I think also being away from people for so long, I think it was a nice relief for me to be a part of it. And I think, I don't know, I've enjoyed them so far. 2 classes I've done this quarter, and I'm looking to do 2 more, but I also continue to do hybrid and online classes as well, because there are more classes available in those formats. So that is something you'd also want to consider, because we have classes available, but not all. I don't think you can do a full-time schedule at Iliff because of the different components that you're trying to fulfill within your degree program. But I think getting some on campus is beneficial, at least for me, for someone who likes to be in engagement with folks. And as Brother Daniel mentioned, I like running into folks and having conversations in the hallway. So that's always nice.
And I'll just add that the dean's office, plans a couple years out ahead, and we've always got, not every class is offered every year, but we've always got a full slate of kind of your basic requirements every year in both residential and hybrid and online formats. You might not get exactly the classes that you want if you try to do all residential, but there'll definitely be options available every quarter, enough to fulfill your degree requirements for sure.
Yeah. Thank you,
Okay,
gentlemen.
yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
that was really helpful because that was my main like concern is would I be able to fill up like if I did end up wanting to do everything in person or but I'm also thinking, you know, it may be nice to have an online class every once in a while and not have to come up to the school or whatever that looks like. So I do really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, really appreciate the question for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd say, you know, the majority of our students kind of, they work at least part-time while going to Iliff full-time. So having that flexibility to pick, and that could change, right? Your flexibility to take classes, whether it's on campus or online hybrid might change. But most of our students appreciate that flexibility. And both Dr. Garber and Dr. Samantha Ju, who are two academic advisors also, like they're the folks that become your best advocates to register for your classes each and every term. So you will let them know like, oh, hey, you know, I actually need to take more online classes now this coming up quarter, right? Can you help me with that? And they will, so.
I have never failed a student from graduating yet.
There you go. Excellent. Wonderful. Other questions? Yes, Victoria.
I was wondering, it might be on the website. Is there any requirement for GRE scores or any other tests?
No.
Yay!
Yay! Everybody clap. Yes, even when I applied in 1999, there was no GRE. Yay! Yeah. I think maybe once upon a time in the mists of the ancient past, Iliff may have done it, but a lot of graduate theology schools, some of them still do it, but really a lot don't now. In our experience at Iliff, at least, like it's a very poor indicator of whether an applicant's going to be successful in graduate theological education, right? It really is sort of more of that standardized test thing. And hopefully, as you've been able to tell so far, like Iliff's kind of not into that kind of stuff, right? We have a more holistic view of human beings than that. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. So hopefully that's great news to everybody.
Thanks.
No worries. Yeah, no GRE.
Hey, I have a question about the essay. As I've been writing my essay, one of my biggest struggles, and this has always been a struggle for me since it's just also a growth area, but it's keeping it under 5 pages. Do you have any tips on how to just kind of keep your story concise and pick and choose what to share and things like that?
That's an excellent question. When I talk to my advisees for the first time, I always ask them to tell me the 2-minute version of why they're at Iliff, because I know then I'll only get 5 to 10 minutes. So concision is also a useful skill to develop in ministry and leadership and scholarship. I'm not remembering at the moment who said it, but I think it might have been E.B. White said the best thing to do is go through your writing, and if you find a sentence you particularly like, erase that one because it's probably too long and wordy and you're too impressed with yourself. But really, I think a nice way to frame an essay is maybe related. I'm brainstorming here because this is a question I haven't answered specifically, but like relate it to the resume, right? What are your skills that you put in that top box that Dennis was talking about? Tell the story of those skills and just those skills, right? I'm passionate about working with disadvantaged youths. So this is how I encountered them. 3 sentences. This is what I learned from them, 4 sentences, right? And then go back and say, I've been told that I'm an excellent speaker. This is because of my undergraduate theater degree, which Brother Daniel and I both share, by the way. Right, so put that in, but another good rule of writing is say what you're going to say in 1 sentence, say it in 1 sentence, and say what you said in 1 sentence. I think that'll help you be concise as well.
Yeah. And I just add, I think, I mean, everything Dr. Garber just said is true. I would also add, though, that like it is okay. You can go a little bit over our sort of minimum, recommended pages for the essay is okay. I mean, it's not a science, right? Like there's not like really a hard line. I mean, it's a balance, right? Like, so yeah, you don't want to flood the admissions committee with like probably like a 25-page essay, right? That's definitely too much. But like if you feel like you need to go 10 or 11, like that's not out of the question, right? It depends on the quality of the writing and the relevance to it, right? But like that, right? That could actually be more helpful and in your favor to go just a little bit longer if you're answering the questions quickly than to go too short. So I've seen some folks that like it's very clear, like you want to make sure you're at least answering those 3 essay questions, right? Some people don't do that. There's some grace there too, but I know it does kind of irk the admissions committee a little bit, right? Like if you're not answering the question about like our Iliff question, like on diversity, right? Like tell us about an experience where, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. Like if you just sort of ignore that and it's kind of more of like a testimony essay, like about your journey or whatever, your personal journey, like sometimes that, like it's okay, but we kind of want more, right? Or both, if that makes sense. So, there's a sin in going too short and also going too long. So you want to hit that sweet spot, but that sweet spot's different for everybody, as I'm sure Dr. Garber would say too, in helping people, write essays is there's different ways to construct it. So don't feel like the page count is like a prison for you to fit into, right? If you need to break out of that a little bit, feel free to do that if that's authentic to who you are.
Okay, thank you. And then just like a quick follow-up, you had been talking about earlier in the essay, maybe discussing how Iliff fits into your life in a really practical way in terms of your other responsibilities, your work schedule, your time, all that kind of stuff. And that's something you want to see in the essay as well, just kind of a little bit about your work schedule and the time that you're going to commit to class and research, etc.
Yeah, just a paragraph or so, yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you so much.
And I see, Brianna has a hand up too, but this might be a question for you, Jeremy. I'm not sure, but Julie asked a question in the chat. What are good indicators of success at Iliff?
Yeah, I was thinking that'd be a good follow-up too. So I think probably number 1 is that time management skill. Like be realistic about what your life looks like, what your priorities are, and how you're going to fit that all together. Because we don't want you to like abandon your family, right? Or abandon your work or abandon your ministry, but just be really clear about what your priorities are, what your strengths are. And the second part of that is being open and honest and transparent with us. Like more so than academic success is building relationality with the faculty and the staff, right? I've got wonderful students who are B students, but who are constantly talking to myself and Dr. Ju about what's going on in their lives, the struggles they're having, the joys they're having, building that relationship with us, building that relationship with the faculty, and not being afraid to be honest. I think that's one of the beauties of a small theological school is you're not just a number, right? And you're not just doing exercises. We're interested in building a relationship with you to help you be the kind of person and the kind of leader you want to be. And that takes trust on both sides. And the most successful students are the ones who are deep and reflective and honest about where they are and transparent about that with the school.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Garber. That's helpful. Yeah, and in my role, so So academic advising, Jeremy and Dr. Jude kind of deal more with that piece, right? Like once you're already admitted and your schedule and all that and how to balance it. But I would add what I've also seen is that most students, regardless of like everybody's busy, right? But people have different responsibilities. Some have like family obligations, others don't. But like I said, almost all of our students are working at least part-time while doing Iliff. Is if you're particularly like if you're wanting to do a full-time load, right, of at least 2 to 3 classes, usually 3, right, every quarter. The successful folks are those that are able to like carve out the time to do all that well, to be in relationship, but also to just do the dang homework, right, and to stay on top of it. And sometimes that means that somebody might have to step off like one church committee, right, or they've got to give up binging one Netflix show, right, just for the duration of that 10-week quarter. It's different for everybody, but I've almost always seen somebody that, like something's got to go so that the work takes the place of that. But it's just important to know like that won't be forever. And the advising folks are there to help you do that and get out of your program on time and hopefully not in like crippling financial debt. So that's our commitment. Brianna, go ahead.
Hello again. Looking at the essay questions, do you all prefer them to be answered like question 1 and then answer question 2 and answer? Because I was wondering about like trying, if it was still clear, of trying to like weave it a little bit. So it's less kind of like answer. But I also want to make your lives a little bit easier too.
No, well, appreciate that. No worries. Totally up to you. I think Alexandra was going to ask if you wanted to maybe speak to that. People have done it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, really, like people have done it both ways. Like, don't be afraid to just be yourself.
Yeah.
And, like, realize that we've seen it all. And when I say that literally, I mean that we've seen it all.
Cool.
But if you shine through weaving it, that's what we want, right?
Okay.
Answer the questions and just shine through, and I'm sure you'll do well.
Okay. Cool.
So I probably could have asked this back when people were asking questions about transcripts, but I logged on to my application process and I requested my transcripts be sent. And I see that someone has entered both the undergraduate and graduate degree that I have and had filled that in. I'm guessing that was you because I don't think I did that. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I had a third master's that I
It's in your record.
didn't finish.
Should be in your record.
Okay. I don't see it here, but that's what I was wondering is if I should follow up or if you don't.
Oh, I can see it. That's, I think, I'll double back with you, but yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think like in the initial part, like just the application information when you're filling out your contact info and all that too, there's that spaces for your previous schools that you went to. So I'm not sure if it got uploaded that way or not, but yeah.
Admissions folks, did you see Amy's question in the chat? I resonate with this because my wife graduated from a similar school out east.
Yes, and oh, did I do it? Okay, so yeah, I thought I answered it, but it might have gone to a different. I think I sent it to myself. Yeah, so you're talking about is it okay for us to have to evaluate transcripts that are narrative based? Yeah, so yeah, it's not a problem. We do get narrative transcripts. Like often it's from folks who have gone to schools in Europe, but not always. It can be US based too. So yeah, that's fine. I mean, obviously we can't, if you got other transcripts too, right, that have GPAs on them, then like we just calculate your collective cumulative GPA if you've got that, but narrative's fine. And yeah, we've absolutely accepted students that have had narrative transcripts. So that's not a problem. Yeah, sorry, I just was looking in there. I did see it, but somehow I sent the answer to myself, which probably wasn't helpful to anybody. Right. These are great questions. So do folks kind of feel better wherever you are in the process? Like, do you feel like, was this helpful information? Are you shaking your head no, Julie? That's why we're doing this, because we want you to feel better about the process.
How to translate what I've been doing for the last 20 years in something that would translate to a resume.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Dennis said, right? It's a snapshot, right? Like it's a piece of information to look at. I mean, I do think, I mean, seriously, like if you got the volunteer stuff, right? Like it doesn't have to be what you've been doing for 20 years if you don't feel like that has a direct tie-in. That can just be the one sentence, right? Like here's how long I was, but like whatever, right? Like I serve meals to homeless folks to this ministry, right? Like every other Saturday, like that's the stuff the committee's looking at, is just to see a little bit, like, do you have, it's to round out the snapshot of you as a human being that may not have been addressed in other parts of the application. Yeah, please don't stress out about that too much. But if you are, we can figure it out. Dennis is good at this, so. And now, Julie, are you the one that specifically said you're like, I'd love to see that power slide deck of that? Okay, I have a copy, so I'll send that to you. Okay.
If we have a little bit more time, I was wondering if Dennis, if you have a favorite class that you've taken so far.
Yeah, this quarter I have two. Well, I think all my classes this quarters are pretty amazing, but I think the two in-person classes I'm biased towards, because I've been in conversation with folks, and having those live conversations, it's kind of fun for me. And but yeah, I've been doing the Pursuit of Happiness with Dr. Albert Hernandez, which is I guess a philosophy class talking about the history of happiness, and not the traditional happiness that we ascribe to, but the more philosophical understanding of it. I don't know, that class has been very interesting, because I think Dr. Hernandez is just like this crazy, has this crazy wealth of information in his brain that he can talk for 4 hours about happiness from any historical era and use specific names, which just blows my mind. But that class has been amazing. But I'm also doing a class on decolonial theologies from the global south, and that's something I've been very interested in at Iliff, and I've done an independent study specifically designed for that, and having a class available this quarter, I think, was really nice to see at Iliff. So yeah, so those have been some of my favorite classes, at least this quarter. But I try to take classes, and Dr. Garber is my advisor, so he's been helpful in helping me find classes that I think I will enjoy. So because some classes, if I'm not having fun, they become very stressful. So this quarter I've been having fun in all 4, so it's been good. Yeah.
Who teaches that second class?
Oh, so we have a postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Garam Jung. He teaches that class. I don't know how long he'll be at Iliff, but I know he's here at least throughout this academic year. And I'm hoping to take Asian American religion with him in the winter session. So if you're living in, I told him I'll try to market this class, because he said right now there are only 2 students registered. So if y'all are in the Denver area and you're going to start in the winter, see if taking Asian American religions is part of your requirement, and join us in that class, because I don't want it to get canceled. So that's the class, because Dr. Jung is really, really cool and fun to be in class with. So yeah, so or tell people who you know are applying. I should at least tell Dr. Garber to guide people to that class as well.
I'm trying. Dr. Jung actually was assigned to us by the Louisville Fellowship. Like we weren't even looking for him. He's like, I want to go teach at Iliff. And he's been marvelous. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Cool, good deal. All right, any other sort of last questions before we wrap up?
I actually have one last quick question, if that's okay. I had spoken with, I want to say her name is Goldie.
Huh?
Yeah, in the financial aid department. And she and I had talked about the scholarship application that's available after being accepted. And it only just now occurred to me that if I get my application in before December 1st, is that scholarship application only open until December 1st as well? Or what's the timeline on that?
So no, it's kind of, it's open. So if the way it works is, you know, if you're getting your regular application in for whatever term it is, right, and you're accepted to Iliff, as Alexandra mentioned earlier, the application itself, right, is for any internal Iliff money consideration. But then once you're accepted, then what usually happens is then Goldie will send out like a little 2-pager Google Doc, right, that is essentially looking to see, it's asking you basically a series of questions to see if you might qualify for some other more specific pots of money. So like we tried to streamline this, right, so that you don't have to like look through pages and pages of stuff and to be like, am I eligible for that? You know, am I not? So it is almost like it's like a second opportunity. It happens after you've been initially accepted though. So there's not really like a timeline close window on that.
Okay.
Is that right, Alexandra, to you too?
Yeah.
Right, that's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure.
So much.
No, absolutely, it's a good question. Are the scholarships specific to the degrees or across programs? Both. Some are across, some are specific. We did recently just get a nice increase in our scholarship budget. So that's good news and good reason for you to try to apply by the December 1 deadline if you're looking for winter, or to the priority deadline for fall of January 31. But it is both. Again, you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think it really is kind of both, right? So it's some slotted, but it is across degree programs. So yeah, there's not just like, because you might be MTS doesn't mean you're not going to get a nice scholarship like, you know, the MDiv students do and that kind of thing. Almost everybody gets something, right? And like I say, it's increased and we're committed increasing that. Our tuition hasn't gone up and oh, good Lord. Do you know, Jeremy? It's been like
8 years.
8? Yeah. So so now's a great time to be applying and thinking about scholarships for sure. Yeah, but we have funding for every degree program. That's probably the easiest way to say it. And I got notes here too. I'm going to follow up with those of you that kind of messaged me directly there. See, Emily's not with us now, right? She was having connection problems. Yeah, okay. Follow up with her privately. Cool. All right. There you go, 11:46.
Nice.
We're all good. So I'm going to thank all of you for coming here, and I hope this was helpful. I think sometimes this stuff, like even though it's, you know, it's not quite 3-dimensional, Zoom at least lets us sort of see each other, right, a little bit, and maybe get more of a feel, vocally or otherwise, for kind of the Iliff community. And hopefully you've been able to kind of, hopefully your fears or anxieties, if you've had those about this process, have been eased a little bit. And I see, yeah, folks are, thank you for thanking us in the chat that it was helpful. Any follow-up, you know how to reach us in admissions. You have a follow-up question with Dr. Garber or Dennis, you can let us know too, and we can forward that on to them. So